Welcome back. My name is Candace Sanderson. I love this opening video. It's mesmerizing, but I'm attracted to it because it actually represents us. We are not our physical bodies. No, not at all. Instead, think of us as what we truly are: magnificent beings of light, of energy, of this formless, never-ending spiral of energy frequencies that encompasses all time, where the past, the future, and the present happen simultaneously. When I began connecting with those often mystical and mysterious forces in the non-physical, I felt awe. I was in awe of the experience. There's one group of non-physical beings, of guides, that I was especially drawn to: the muses within. It was easy to identify them by their language. How they spoke was often as memorable as what they said. Early in my channeling, which began in August of 2013, I heard from multiple messengers, but I never asked who they were. I assumed if their name was important, they would tell me. There was one group of guides that I worked with that were known for giving me just the facts, straightforward messages. I felt like I was sitting in a classroom or a lecture hall, but these messengers satisfied the urge that I had to make sense of everything. These were those data-driven messages that validated and proved to me that there was so much more than what I had thought life was. They introduced new concepts, but these ideas were shared with me in a very simple, easy to understand format. The messengers often gave me this imagery, whether it was a written formula or sometimes a multi-step vision, but I was able to see how the messenger's words worked. I understood. Very often, they told me everything is energy. Well, I knew that, but it took a while for this concept to really register with me and sink in. It's not just physical items that have a density that can be measured, but more importantly, I began to understand how the energy of emotions and thought work. When I began to see life, both 3D and 5D, through the lens of energy, something happened. This other side, this non-physical dimension, lost its woo-woo-ness. I know that is not a word, but I'm sure you understand what I'm saying. Stepping into the non-physical world was no longer a magical trip into mystical realms. But yeah, I have to admit, it still feels right to describe it that way. But I know differently. These treks into the non-physical realms grant us access to a space where our thoughts manifest our journeys. They've always manifested our lives, one nanosecond at a time, but I was finally able to, really comprehend it, to see it. And I knew by this time that those thoughts are just the fuel that we use for these adventures. This premise of everything is energy, including thoughts and especially our emotions, open doors for out-of-body travels. When we step into the 5D, our beingness changes. We can see that easily. Go to a silent retreat for a week. Go to your church or synagogue, or any place that you consider sacred. Perhaps it's a walk on the beach, or in the desert, or in the mountains. Go to the Monroe Institute. After being in these sacred spaces, you return home changed. You are not the same. The very same is true, and probably more so, when you travel into the subtle realms of energy, those dimensions of the non-physical. When you travel, you acclimate to those subtleties, those frequencies. You don't have to do anything. You just have to be there. The fact that your energy body is in that field is enough to jumpstart the change. And the longer you stay, or the more frequently you go there, your awareness expands even deeper and wider. I know the first few trips I made, I felt these tingles throughout my body. If I focused on my hands, for example, it was difficult to see and feel where my hands stopped and the surrounding field began. But what was interesting was that I realized, regardless of the form, this was still me. I was the base, the foundation, but I was allowing more of the true me to materialize. I was much more than this physical body. As I embraced that idea, I expanded even more. I became so expansive over time that I could extend my awareness beyond galaxies. But I was still me. When we are in these states, I guess it's more appropriate to say when we are these states, because we are not in them, we see what was not visible to our 3D eyes. We hear that which was not audible to our 3D ears. All of our senses have expanded because we've stepped into a dimensional space of a very subtle energy that is much greater than what we experience in the 3D world. I want to say that we become empowered, but that's not true. Becoming empowered, because that suggests we become greater than what we are, which is not possible. That could not be farther from the truth. Because, as Bob Monroe used to tell us, we are more than our physical bodies. Our physical bodies do not define us, although it is natural for many people to think it does. I know at some point in time, I used to think that. Before I retired, when I would attend a workshop, often we would go around the room and introduce ourselves. I would get my paper and pen and make 2 columns, and I would make tally marks on how people introduced themselves. One column was for those who said, "I am," followed by their name. The other column were for those who would say, "My name is." So many times, the only tally mark in the "My name is" column was mine. You see, although I grew up and went to school to become a psychologist, although I denied anything existed unless I could measure it by my physical senses, although the scientific method molded my adult life, from early on, I've always known on some level that I was not my physical body. I've always known that my physical body had a name that could change at the drop of a hat. But none of that mattered because I was not my physical body. I did not see this in real time, but in retrospect, it became clear. When I finally reached a tipping point and began moving into those non-physical realms that surround us, I knew. Yes, I finally knew that I was not my physical body. Each trip into these worlds of energy brought a huge array of emotion for me. At first, maybe there was a little bit of fear, but that was my training as a psychologist. What's wrong with me? Am I hallucinating? Always looking for the problem. Next came that awe and wonder as I explored these beautiful realms that anyone can reach. After all, we visit these realms nightly in our dreams. Eventually, I acclimated. With the help from my messengers, I began to understand how it happened, and I became a little more proficient. The messengers told me how I could develop tools for exploration. I tried them, and they worked. These mystical realms were no longer that. These were worlds where physics simply operate differently. We are no longer restricted by those laws that operate in the 3D. When we're in the 5D, we can fly. We can think of a destination and arrive immediately. We can remember the other roles we played, perhaps hundreds of years ago, because we knew. We absolutely knew. We were not our physical bodies. We were experiencing that beautiful state of existence that we had between our lives on earth. We were gathering and collecting all those parts of ourselves that always existed, yet we didn't know about. And like a magnet passing over a pile of iron shavings, we began collecting a little bit at a time pieces of ourselves. With each trip into these divine realms, we began to rebuild ourselves. And it's this new self that returned to earth when our meditation was over, when our ceremony was complete, when our dream ended. Just by visiting those realms of energy, we change. We grow closer to who we really are, our true self, our authentic self. We are powerful beings of energy, of light, just waiting to manifest a world of wonder. I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. Feel free to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Remember, you are a magnificent being of light. And as you walk through your 3D life, let that beautiful light shine. Until next time, goodbye.